Imagine my thrill when I was doing my little show prep in my show prep place where I do the show prep and prep. And I look, and there is J.D. Vance. And he's gone to Europe at a security summit, and he's decided to speak truth with some grace and some snark. And the snark was really, really high-quality snark, because you can get that snark that's not the fresh snark, and you get that stale snark, and then it doesn't have the snarky bite that you want. But J.D. Vance brought the full-on fresh snark. And he also spoke, it seemed to me, unless he memorized the speech, I didn't see a lot of teleprompter gaping. I saw a guy speaking with great knowledge of what needs to be done, and in a very calm sense. He was wonderfully well received. He got a standing, no, he didn't get a standing ovation. He got golf clapping. So I'll get into this in detail and show you all of this. I do want to tell you, heads up, I'm going to share with you something that the pharma companies don't want you to know. I'll do that in a bit here, because it has occurred to me that we're not being clear enough when we talk about some things. And I'm going to share with you a secret they don't want you to know. Let's start with this. So J.D. Vance was talking about immigration, and he referred to some appalling setbacks. And this is him being kind and polite. But as you know, Europe has been overrun with illegal immigrants because they took the orders of the World Economic Forum, and they took the orders of the European Council, and they took the orders of the European Union, and they scattered illegal immigrants throughout the country. I mean, I know they welcomed them in, but they didn't process them. They didn't get IDs, and we're watching what's happening. And it's never reported in the American press. The no-go zones are never reported. It's never reported that you have cities in England that are now far majority Muslim, and they're pushing and demanding, and they want Sharia law because the Mockingbird media doesn't like to report the fact that Islam is a political structure. And of course, it's not just Muslim people. This has been a top-down effort to restructure the world, in my judgment, to destabilize it. It's all hidden in equity. J.D. Vance speaking to the European elites.
Challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration. Today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course it's gotten much higher since. And we know this situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe, and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction?
And again, you know, we could go through the polite golf clap applause. That's what he was getting. It was a Munich security conference. So he's speaking in Munich about a situation in that arena. And these people are unwilling to confront it. And we have to ask the question, since we have watched in the United States, as Elon Musk's team didn't just reveal what we knew was there, money laundering and grift and corruption, but also a purposeful use of stupid people to carry out ridiculous orders. If you work in the Treasury, it is your job to pay people and to guard the monies of the American people. And you don't go to your bosses and say, I can't pay this bill because it says here, I don't know what it's for. How can I process this? How could we ever go do our books? Stupid people aren't going to ask that question. They're just going to process that payment. Afraid people, or people who know that they have hit the professional lottery because they're not going to go get great jobs in the private sector. And here they can't be fired, and they get to take home a paycheck that's 2 to 3 times what the average American earns. All the incentives are wrong. So we have to ask ourselves, in Europe, how many of those politicians have been paid to sell their countries out? Either through so-called NGOs, which aren't really NGOs, since many of them take 100% of their monies from governments, non-governmental organizations that aren't non-governmental. J.D. Vance also challenged Europe to step up for their own defense. This goes very, very to the heart of Make America Great Again, that we are going to be America first, and we expect the premiers of those countries to be their countries first.
On the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation, who simply don't like the idea that somebody with an alternative viewpoint might express a different opinion or, God forbid, vote a different way, or even worse, win an election. Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target. And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger.
And America doesn't need to be the cop. This is the cliche, of course. We don't need to be the cop of the world. But we do need to, of course, be able to defend ourselves and our allies in a way that makes sense. But he's talking here about Europe making some investments so that the needs are less. So that when we get to the war with China, I mean, we all know that's coming, right? If America recovers financially through the efforts of President Trump and J.D. Vance with the strong assist by Elon Musk and Doge, if we recover economically and we recover the society, and that is that we recover from this insane insertion of divisive tactics like the gender lies, etc., if we recover our borders, if we do succeed in getting down to just legal immigration, China that wants to take us out is going to have failed to do it internally. I mean, they're trying the method of taking us out without firing a shot. They're going to have to fire a shot. If we succeed and God gives us a little time and rescues us a bit here, that war will come. I think, don't you? China's pledged to be the dominant world force. They can't do that with the dominant United States. I'm not saying we should stop fixing our economy. I'm saying that we should focus on that rising threat while Europe can focus on whatever they think is their rising threat, because I think China will come for them too, but they're way down the list. J.D. Vance coined a phrase, and it's about being afraid of your own voters, and this related to security as well.
Ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we are defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people. Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you.
That is just brilliant. And they are running in fear of their own voters because their voters have figured them out. Their voters have seen, you hate us. The farmers in the Netherlands have seen, you hate us. You want us destroyed. You don't want us to ever be able to ranch again. You want to steal our property on behalf of Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum. You don't want real foods. You want factory-made garbage. So J.D. Vance spoke of that. Meanwhile, in America, and then we'll get to one more thing from J.D. Vance, we had Democrats singing, because this will stop Elon Musk.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against Josh. We'll fight Elon Musk. No, Elon's kept with him.
And the song said at one point, he wants us to bow to him, but we want him in jail because he's cutting budgets. Constitutional crisis. J.D. Vance made a funny that the people in Europe either didn't get or at which they refused to laugh.
Expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Listen.
But what German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Or perhaps deplorable. Or as Justin Trudeau said, thoughts that are not okay. Inappropriate thoughts of freedom. And of actually being a nation that's not a debtor nation. Brilliant speech, and I pray that J.D. Vance will be president after President Trump serves out these 4 years. God willing, he get through these 4 years. I made a promise to you that I was going to tell you something that Pharma doesn't want you to know. And it occurred to me the other day, I haven't been vociferous enough on this. If you go through the grocery stores or the drugstores, please go look at how many different, I was going to say flavors, formulations of ibuprofen there are. And just take a gander sometime when you're in line and see how many people are buying that stuff, and go see how much they push it. And they've got 2-for-1 specials and bulk specials. Now, this isn't the ibuprofen show. I'm talking about this because there is a viable alternative to this that people should be using. And I plead guilty to having eaten a bunch of ibuprofen for the same reason that you probably do, which is inflammation. You can stop this. Native Path Antarctic Krill will stop this for you. Okay, I've had this experience of taking just 2 soft gels every night, and I don't experience inflammation any before. And I'm talking about joint pain and general muscle discomfort. One study showed that this reduced joint pain 28% in 7 days. Another study shows it reduces blood clots by 60% because it increases the flow of blood. Another one still shows it is 50 times more absorbable than the oil you would get through fish. It's Native Path Krill. Go visit getkrill.com/Todd to see the specials they have for you today. That's getkrill.com/Todd. Toss the ibuprofen and toss Pharma in the garbage can. Getkrill.com/Todd. That's getkrill.com/Todd.